Hello and welcome to the show, The Awakening, here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. The information and opinions expressed on this show are just that, the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual knowledge and personal experience. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. Along with this information today, we also want you to know that there will be no, along with this, we will not be giving any financial or legal advice. And the views expressed here by Brianna Beski do not constitute or do not represent Raymond James's views. So you know the pain, the stress, and the struggle that the divorcing men and women go through? Well, there is a way to find peace and sanity, all while assisting your attorney and saving thousands of dollars in the process. My name is Tina Huggins. I'm your divorce coach specialist, your divorce planning specialist, restorative family mediator, and conflictual co-parenting coach. And joining me here today, I'm super excited about this. We have Brianna Beski, just as I stated earlier. She's one of my favorite people to work with. So being able to have her here and have a conversation with her here is pretty special. So Brianna knows what it feels like to have your entire identity wrapped up in success, only to have it all come crashing down. Brianna was an Olympic hopeful. She trained relentlessly, dedicating her life and mastering multiple sports and pushing herself beyond her limits. But when an injury shattered her dreams, she left questioning everything. Who am I? Who am I if I'm not succeeding? Who am I if I disappoint the people around me? At the same time, she was living in a household defined by constant conflict. Her parents stayed in a toxic marriage for years, using the children as emotional leverage rather than finding a healthier path forward. It all came to a head on the day of Brianna's wedding. Her mother announced her own divorce. That was the moment Brianna realized just how deeply failed relationships can affect not just the two people involved, but entire families, the financial confidence and self-worth. She decided to change the way people experience divorce. Thank you for joining me here today, Brianna.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So we've had, conversations, and I did a workshop with you, and not once in all of that did I know that you were an Olympic hopeful. So we need to start that off with that little bit of story.
Sure. So I was an Olympic hopeful for modern pentathlon. That's shooting, fencing, swimming, at the time horseback riding. They've changed it now to ninja, and running. So that was what I was a hopeful for. I got thrown from a horse, I hurt my back, and I didn't make it. But I share that story really because a lot of my clients, they feel like they've worked so hard for this relationship and to make it work. And then stuff happens, whether or not it's in their control. Quite frankly, for many of my clients, they feel like it's not in their control. They tried everything and here we are. And I want my clients to know that I feel you, friend. I may not know exactly what you're going through, but holy cow, it sucks. And I can be empathetic too, because I've been through a life-shattering event where everything feels upside down and you have no control.
Yeah. And then going through, and I find, and I'm not going to label your mom, but just before we came on, we were talking about my late husband's ex-wife and the torture and torment that he went through and that I got to witness during our lifetime together. And I'm thinking back of one of his daughter's weddings where he was going to walk her down the aisle, and literally at the last minute, the mom got in their face, made her cry, and said she had to walk down with both of them. So
Wow.
as I was reading that, and putting this together, here you are on your very special day, and you're super excited, a little nervous, and your mom announces she's getting divorced. It's like, here, let's take all the
Yeah.
spotlight off of you and put it on her. It's about me now and not my beautiful daughter.
It's frustrating when that happens and it's not fun, and everyone around sees it's not right, and everyone around sees that stuff publicly. It's not fun.
Mm-mm, not at all. And so you got to grow up in this household. And I find that to be an interesting thing because I got to meet my late husband's children, and they all turned out really wonderful. And it's crazy how you can spend so much time in a relationship with parents that are toxic, or one that is extremely toxic and the other's trying to make up for it. And that was the way kind of my late husband did. And yet you turn out to be this wonderful, kind, empathetic, gentle person.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. I mean, I don't have the same expertise you have, so I don't label either one, but I'd say my household was a situation where everyone is at fault, if that makes sense. Some people are willing to ask for help, some people aren't, and you move forward with those realities, which it sucks at times, and you move forward. There's a reason why we get to make friends, and I like to refer people to you as well.
Yeah. And I went through some training, some high conflict training for mediation. So we had to read Bill Eddy's book on high conflict mediation. And so inside the book, he talks a lot about high conflict, and a lot of times that it's one person. And like you're saying in your household, that everybody was kind of to blame. He does talk in that book. So we had to go through some training about how when you have two high conflict people in a family. And I just can't even imagine, Brianna, especially your personality and your demeanor, living in a household with a whole toxic family.
Yeah. No, I ended up moving at age 16. I it was one of those things where I would say probably that was motivation for the sports, which is interesting in retrospect because I will be transparent. I love competing. I really did enjoy what I was doing, but waking up at 4 and 5 a.m. to do things so you could get to be a higher level and qualified to live somewhere else, that was something that really, I guess, motivated me at the time. So thankfully, I had to get out earlier than what you would expect. So I got out at 16. And it took me a while to recognize the value of asking for help and getting said help. And I'd say decades later, that is how you find me now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that I did a post about this last week where I went through my divorce 22 years ago, and I didn't ask for any help. I didn't talk to an attorney. I didn't talk to anybody. And the mediator, the day of mediation, I had no clue what mediation was. I was going into this blind. We owned 40 acres, a house, a few vehicles, some beautiful furniture, and I had a tea and china set that I collected, and I collected specific Barbie dolls at that time of my life. And so I had all of this stuff that was invested in this relationship, right? And because I didn't understand, and because the abuse that I was receiving, which was mostly psychologically yelling and screaming at me, which is probably the worst thing you can do to me, I can walk away from that fairly easy. But that aspect of walking away became physically dangerous for me. And so going through that, I didn't have a good experience in my divorce, and I ended up with my van, the clothes on my back. Later, I got to take the rest of most of the clothes, and my china, teapots, a set of wine glasses, and 3 or 4 pieces of furniture. And that was it.
That's
He got
wild.
all of the rest. I didn't get any financial support. And because of the way that we left, I didn't get any child support for the kids. So
Yeah,
having somebody like you would have made a huge difference for me.
for sure. Yeah, I think you elaborated on some of that experience in a blog for Not Quite Done with Divorce in the workshop, which you did a great job of speaking for. So yeah. No, I like working with people in terms of helping them understand what is allowed by the law, what is something that they need to understand, and what their decisions mean for now, later, through retirement, through life expectancy. Because as you highlight, where you walk into a situation just blind and you don't know what to expect, and this one thing is really important, but you're not really thinking past the emotions because the emotions are real. It's unfortunate, and I am very thankful that I'm able to help my clients kind of visualize, here are decisions and here's what it means for you, and here are different ways that you can look at this and kind of slice that pie up, because you're right, it can be very meaningful when it's not just you.
Hmm. And not asking for help, or not asking for help soon enough, because back then I didn't ask for help. And I've shared this with our audience before, but 6 months after I left, I attempted suicide
I'm so
because I
sorry.
didn't have that support. Thank you. I didn't have that support because I didn't reach out. And yes, the cost of support back then was probably something I couldn't do because I didn't ask for financial assistance from him. But if I had at least reached out to somebody, I probably could have found a way to afford either the coach aspect, or working with somebody like you, finding somebody that could guide me through what I needed to do, or therapist.
Yeah. um no, I think that is very important, is asking for help. Like, I can tell you that just by the virtue of asking questions, even into Google, so you're finding this podcast or show, um, you're doing a service to yourself, because you are asking a question, you are going to find more information. Because Tina, I'm sure you'd agree with me that, like, nobody cares about your situation as much as you do, and it really matters to you. So there
Hmm.
is value in getting that help. And even if you think cost is a question or a concern, it is worth asking questions. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree. I mean, there's, people like you that, yes, you can't do your work for free, but when you do the consultation, you can definitely give guidance to that person so that they can find some of the answers that they may not be able to afford with you. But if they don't reach out to you, they won't know that you have that kind of information. And then they might find that it's going to be more affordable for them to work with you and I together, as opposed to just going with an attorney and letting an attorney take them into court where a judge has all of the say so.
You're right. I agree with you. Um, no, I 100% agree. Like, I know your website has a lot of great resources. Mine does too. And I do enjoy being able to offer resources to people when the situation arises. I was actually talking to somebody yesterday. It's like, well, here's this free replay of how to understand and organize your assets ahead of divorce, because these are questions people got asked. You can either watch it or you can read it, but they're available for you. Please use that information. I agree with you.
Yeah. And yeah, I worked with Vesta Divorce for a little while, which was a really wonderful organization where they did all these free podcasts, or free, where you could attend them in person and you could write out your questions in the Q&A forum and they would answer them right there. And they always had like a financial person like yourself, and they had two attorneys, one that was litigative and one that was usually traditional family law. And then there was the divorce coach, usually a parenting coach. And in some cases, they had realtors and mortgage professionals on there as well. And I can tell you that I learn from those things how to better help my clients.
Yeah. No, that sounds like an awesome resource.
Mhm. Well, and then coming and speaking with you, it was all virtual and stuff, but being able to talk with you on your not quite done with divorce yet, that is another great resource that's out there. Why don't you kind of explain to our viewers what that is?
So, similar to what you mentioned, I very much believe that the legal, emotional, and financial sides of divorce lead to a lot of questions. And as you and I mentioned, help. Sometimes you don't even know what questions to ask. And what I like about Not Quite Done with Divorce is it does help people go from contemplating or going through and feeling stuck. There's a monthly workshop for that. And then the nonprofit also has workshops focused on people going through and post divorce decree to go help answer questions or start that conversation or highlight resources available. So, Tina, you talked during one of the workshops designed for people contemplating and going through divorce. That workshop is monthly. It's the first Saturday of every month, available in Zoom and in person. It is designed to give people a forum to ask questions, to learn what resources are out there and what to know what you don't know. Because for you and me, we go through divorce every day through our clients. For many of my clients, it's their first time going through this and it's scary and there are a lot of unknowns. And to have a community of people like yourself to kind of open the doors and say, hey, you're not alone. I'll walk through this with you can be very powerful. And it's something that I feel very strongly on in that it should be available to the community. And there are lots of great resources out there too. This is one of them.
Mhm. Well, and I think, all the video type training classes, and especially when you can go to like your event and be able to ask questions, because just like you said, a lot of people are going through a divorce for the first time, and even some of them going through the second time. They got in a mess the first time and can't figure out how to not go through that mess here the second time. And being able to ask your specific questions, because not every divorce is the same.
No,
And
it's not.
and being able to ask those questions to you and to the other professionals, just a lot of help.
I agree. No, and I'm very thankful for people like yourself who are willing to talk because as we discussed, I know the finances really well. I got you, friend. I know lawyers tend to be experts on the law. They got you too, but you specifically handle the mental health, and that's huge because I feel like emotions really become this cloud and they stop you from thinking straight, and you need to be able to like look through that. So the work you do is very important, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. I talked about you here a couple of weeks ago, probably even on this podcast, actually, um, because I had come through a divorce that I was suggested by another CDFA, and then the clients, as they went through the thing, they threw the CDFA, the poor CDFA, under the bus. Because and for our viewers, CDFA stands for Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. But they threw her under the bus because they couldn't take their own blame. So they had to have somebody to blame for the problem. And so she went through a torturous. And so in talking with other CDFAs, I can totally say that working with you and the way that you work and your demeanor is more calming and easier to go through. And I know how well you explain the finances to people, especially when they don't understand them. I find that to be an amazing, wonderful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's really important to me for people to have that clarity, the full understanding, and for it I feel like the phrase judgment free zone is overused, but it's true. I mean, I can't tell you how many clients I work with where they raised so many children. They took care of the household. It feels like they did everything. And it's reasonable in a relationship to delegate certain tasks to different people. So because they didn't have the financial aspect of the house, it's reasonable to say, oh my God, I'm learning all this for the first time all at once, and I just don't know what I don't know. I think it is very important to have a calm presence that is willing to be like, I got you, friend. I'll answer your questions and it's okay. I was working with a client like that the other day where, again, several decades, multiple children, multiple houses. Her ex was military. And like for real, I'm looking at this woman's background where she doesn't have an official resume, but I got to tell you, this woman knows what she's doing. And she's like, here are the numbers that are being thrown in front of me, and I just don't know that they're fair, and I don't know what I don't know, and I'm scared. And it makes me very happy to sit down with my client and walk through these numbers. And for example, my client was one of many people that don't like to see numbers on a spreadsheet. So we're able to demonstrate that in other ways and just share, like, okay, so here's what these numbers mean on paper. But for you, what's important is having a household, helping your kids with their marriages. A few of them are getting close to getting married, going to visit your kids because some of them are scattered around the country. Like that's what's important. So let's translate this to what matters to you and what matters to your future. And by the end of our engagement together, because it wasn't just a one time deal, it was over several times, she walked out of my office just feeling so calm and confident, and she was good with it. Like, yes, her divorce sucks. Let's be real, it does. Um, but she felt confident walking into the next chapter of life where she knew that she was going to be able to visit her kids, help them with what mattered to her and them, and to have a long, happy life. And that makes me really happy to help people, get to that point where they can see how to achieve what they want to achieve.
Hmm. Yeah, you've mentioned this a couple of times, so I want to back up on the topic where you say they don't know what they don't know. But this client that you're talking about, she knew she didn't know something. And so she reached out for help. So this is where
She did.
so many of us, and this is where I was 22 years ago, is I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know I didn't know it. So I
Yeah.
didn't know to reach out. And so that's what I'm telling our viewers is that reach out and ask for help. The majority of us out here, Brianna, myself, we will do our initial consultation with you at little to no cost. And you'll be able to ask questions and become familiar with how we work and with us. And you'll know when you step away from that meeting if this is what you need to do or where you need to go. And if this isn't where it is, we definitely guide you in at least a direction that might be positive for you.
Yeah. No, I actually was talking to someone that I sent to you I would say it was a couple months ago at this point. And when they came to me, they were scared and they were like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And I don't know. And it's like, well, here's the questions I can answer. What you're asking tells me maybe you should talk to somebody else. And I gave the person your name. And they texted me, I want to say a couple weeks ago, we're personal friends, and mentioned that she did connect with you and she was so thankful that you were there and that you're on her team. So I do agree. It is worth it to have those conversations to ask for help because I know I'll be transparent when I don't have the answers and you'll be transparent too.
Yeah. And again, when we're at least explaining the process, you are explaining numbers, which is definitely not my wheelhouse. Um, and when we can explain what we understand, they bring in all these numbers and throw the sheet of paper at you, and you look at them and you see things where those of us, like in myself, I'm literally numbers dyslexic. I can throw that sheet at you, and when I look at it, it's just a pile of lines. And then when you communicate back to me, you tell me where everything's at and how it looks and how it can be divided, which is huge when it comes to the split in a divorce.
Yeah, no, I find that helping people understand how things can be divided, tax ramifications for those divisions, because taxes tragically happen, it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would bet I've mentioned this to you because I talk about it a lot, is one of the things that I learned when I went through the Vesta little trainings that they did is that when we go to split up our money and you have two pots of retirement and you talk
Mhm.
about the tax ramification, but they both got $500,000 in them, and one person takes this pot and the other person takes this pot. Well, one of them gets taxed where the other one didn't. So one person didn't get the full amount. And so I learned that that was super, super important. So I always get my people to go and talk to a CDFA.
Yeah, it's important because you're right. Like looking at the values just in general and looking at the after tax values, it makes a difference.
So a mistake that I have seen happen, and I saw this firsthand. I saw it. I actually was in the meeting, one of them, and then I saw it on the stand in the courtroom later on, is that instead of going to a CDFA, and that D is so important because dividing things up in divorce is not necessarily the same as dividing things for tax purposes
Yeah.
for later taxes to come out, but they paid to go with an accountant at $400 an hour. I
Wow.
was at one of those meetings that lasted 4 hours long, and there was nothing that came out of that meeting that was usable.
That
And then
sucks.
that accountant got up on the stand and wanted to show off their talent to the judge, and the judge wasn't going to have any of it, and literally said that did not find her credible.
That's tough. I'm sorry.
Well, and it's sad that people go through that kind of stuff. And that is why I want our viewers to understand that that designation of divorce in the CDFA is so important.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see it with other professions too, because really, so I've had a number of divorces under my belt in terms of helping my clients, but having that specialized training to understand, what the laws mean where you are locally and federally and how those interact, it makes a huge difference. And then also having the experience to be like, okay, here's the documents you need. Here's how you go through it to divide these accounts, and here are the pitfalls that you need to watch out for. That's very, very meaningful. And getting back on your feet after divorce and understanding what's involved because I know and a lot of divorce professionals talk about it, but the situation is so cash hungry both during and after divorce. You really have to think about where are you getting that source of cash, like that means so much.
Yeah. And just what you're saying, just going through that and trying to get back on track. And it is cash hungry. And when you look at the numbers and the separation on those numbers, a lot of people, it's just like going into the hospital. I'm not going to go into the hospital because it's just going to cost me so much. I don't care if I have cancer because I can't afford the doctor bills anyways. It is definitely worth investing some of your time and money to find out those answers before you go forward because as a mediator, I'm listed in Colorado as a mediator, in fact, and when I talk to clients, I try to gauge them or send them in the direction of mediation. And that's where your work comes in. They get to sit that out and they get to say, this is what I would like. And mediation is like the only time where you get to have an opportunity to attempt or try to work with your ex to make sure that things can be done in a 50-50 way that fits for you. You get to have some say-so here. And you get to have ideas of way to separate things out and ideas that sometimes you can't come up on your own. And that's why having Brianna on your team helps you to, she can give you ideas of how you can do this. For instance, recently, the word alimony came up in a high net worth case in another state, and that high net worth aspect, he refused to give her what she technically deserved. And he hated the word alimony. So I went back into with her and I said, okay, so now you get to work with your financial person and you get to come up with a way that you can take some of that alimony from a different pot and not call it alimony so that he is not triggered by the term. Well, that's exactly what they did. And being able to have a CDFA in that specific situation helped them to be able to pull that money because the CDFA was able to say, oh, well, you can pull it out of here and that'll work.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to do it. I actually had a case a couple weeks ago where there was a house involved and one party did not trust the other party to pay. We call it spousal maintenance here. Um, it's the same thing as alimony, but uh, they were like, okay, so this is where I'm going to take it out of these pots of money. And when they shared what they were planning to do, they were about to trigger $40,000 in taxes that they had no idea about. Can you imagine going through the hell of a divorce and then next April getting a bill from the IRS saying, hey, by the way, you owe us 40 grand?
And
It's,
all because they didn't ask for help.
yeah, it's kind of scary. So it is helpful, as you said, creative problem solving, but also highlighting, watch out, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, if they end up in court, then yes, your documents are going to be seen by that judge. But that judge is going to be the one that decides how things are going to be split. And basically judges try to do that in a 50-50 split. But when the judge separates it out, it doesn't mean that you're getting the 50%. Again, it's that retirement, two retirement accounts, one's taxed and one's not. And so, but a judge doesn't care. All he's looking at is the initial numbers. He doesn't care about the taxes. He doesn't care about you. So he's going to just, or she is going to separate it out in 50-50. And one of you is not going to have as much as the other. And neither one of you will be happy.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'd say the judges I run across, it's not that they don't care, it's that they're overworked and they're not experts in that. They're really good at the law. They're experts in the law, but they're not experts in taxes. They're not experts in finances. They're not experts in emotions. They don't know what the last period of time for your relationship was. They're just going through what's in front of them, and depending on where you are in the country, there's usually a clock on it. Like I know in Colorado, it's about a 2-hour event if you end up in front of a judge. It's very unfortunate when you have 30, 40 years of life that is being decided in 2 hours, how you're splitting that up. It sucks.
Yeah. I went through a 2 8-hour divorce in 2 days of 8 hours in one divorce. And when I say that the judge doesn't care, I'm actually taking that judge's words. I don't care. It's all
Wow,
nuts bolts to me. I don't
that's
care.
horrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was not a good event for that couple. And the abuse that was happening wasn't just from the one spouse to the other. It was also from From the lawyers, they saw dollar signs. And in this case, we had a judge that just literally decides that he's going to go off on a tangent and just talk for 45 minutes about his car and the flat tire he had. And
Wow.
they had to pay for that 45 minutes of two of their attorneys. So it's just best if we can work it out. If we can't work it out, we can find a better way than just directly going and fighting in front of the court. And that's where, my part comes as I help keep the conflict down so that we don't have so many months or years in this case of divorce. And in your case, having all of the documents down to the penny of knowing where things are at and how they can be separated out helps save time in the divorce process.
Very true.
So as we start to come to the end, Brianna, I know that you're in Colorado, but you can work outside of the state of Colorado. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. So kind of tell us how people can find you and how they can work with you, or how you work actually.
Sure. So the way people typically find me, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Brianna Beski. I have a website, raymondjames.com/Brianna Beski. You can call me at work, 719-208-3767. The way I tend to work with my clients is, again, that conversation up front. You say it's a consultation, I say it's a quick conversation. And I ask very directly what you're looking for to see if I can offer what you want. Typically, when people are going through a divorce, I offer a flat fee service where I actually share, here are the deliverables, here's the cost, and we talk about that. But the way it would go is it starts with a conversation. When you decide to work with me, we would actually start putting together a strategy to put together everything you want. And then the most important part I highlight is ongoing conversation. It's not a one and done thing. It's over the course of your entire divorce. And that's something that is very important to many of my clients, is that I'll be there the whole time.
Mm-hmm. I think that, and telling, people about how they can find you, all of your contact information will be here below the video so that you can look that up. And just remembering her name, like she suggested, you can go and get a hold of her on LinkedIn, which is a real simple, easy way to find somebody, especially in her case. And being able to find you and have that consultation, the conversation, the short conversation, they're at least going to find out how to work with you and how. I mean, your demeanor definitely comes across today in this podcast, because this is who you are and this is what you do. You truly care. And so I think that's super important. And so for me, I am a certified divorce coach, meaning that I'm trained in the complexities of divorce. I've actually been through an abusive relationship where I ended up with broken bones and separated ribs and a dislocated leg. My dad was almost murdered in his relationship, and my late husband went through a very, very abusive time in his marriage. And so not only do I know textbook, I've experienced that. And so being able to reach me, you can email me at coachtinalynn@gmail.com. That's CoachTinalynn@gmail.com. My website is divorcecoachspecialist.com. You can find me on social media. Facebook under Tina Lynn Huggins, LinkedIn under Tina Huggins, on Instagram under Divorce Coach Tina Lynn, and TikTok under Divorce Tina. And so this is a part, Brianna, I would like for you to give our viewers a last bit of advice here.
I would say it's okay to ask questions, and you are doing good by asking questions. It's okay to not know everything. Ask.
And I think that as my, you've heard me talk about it here a couple of times today, and then I've talked about it several times recently over my post, is that, Brianna says to ask, but you've got to reach out. And she said it today that you don't know what you don't know. Let's find out, because what you don't know can hurt you. And you're already going through a difficult time. Even if your marriage wasn't abusive and it just came to an end and you're going to be able to somewhat work together, there's still conflict, there's still emotion there. And being able to handle that emotion is huge. And when it comes to the numbers, when it comes to being able to have somebody help you with the numbers, as Brianna has demonstrated, she is kind. She's going to walk you through this nice and gently, just like she's done today in this conversation. So being able to reach out to her and ask her for financial information, at least talk to her and ask the questions, because if she can't help you, she can at least send you in a direction that you can find that help. And when I say ask for help, I'm talking you've got to get that emotional support, whether that is me, a different divorce coach, or a therapist. You need to have that emotional support, because this is one of the most difficult times that you can possibly go through. Just having gone through the death of my husband, I can say that my divorce was way more difficult in a different way. And I almost died through that because of the suicide attempt. So please reach out and ask for help. So as I've just talked about, divorce can cause suicidal ideation. And if you are there, whether it's divorce or any other reason, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 988. And 988 is also the same number in Canada. And then the Netherlands, you can reach out to them at 113. Get that support right now. Talk to somebody right here and right now when you're in that bad place, so that you don't stay in that place. And then if you are in a situation that you need the police there, call 911 here in the States. And in the UK, it's 999. The Netherlands, it's 112. Get the police there, press charges. The charges are your key out of your relationship. It is a safe key because the other person can't come close to you or come into the house. And if you drop those charges, a lot of times what the abuse that happened before the charges is much worse once the charges are dropped. This is your key out. And if you need or know somebody who needs the domestic violence hotline, that hotline is 800-799-7233. That number again is 800-799-7233. And I ask that you please like, comment, and share so this information can help others. Thank you so much for joining me here, Brianna.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.